everybody. This is part 2 of our devotional on exposing the lie. Last week we ran a devotional on who is Jesus, and yesterday we started our first in this series of exposing the lie, and we spoke about the liar, the one who lies to us. His name is Satan, and he is our enemy. And today, in the second one, I'm just going to look at how he manages to lie to us, how he manages to influence us in our lives, how he deceives us so that we become sharp to recognize his voice above every other voice, how we can become sharp in knowing when he is trying to deceive us and trick us and bring us down. And just now, I just want to run through some doors in our lives that we can open up that make us vulnerable to the enemy so that we can close them, or so that in the future we can make sure we don't fall into his trap. Also so that we can just speak wisdom into our families and our friends, and when we see the enemy deceiving folk and bringing them down, how we can recognize it. We can recognize it in others and in ourselves, so that we can just become stronger human beings, stronger people, and not vulnerable to his deception. So I'm going to run through a few ways that he tries to affect us. And the enemy is just like just like any other bully. He will pick out people who are vulnerable. If you're going through something difficult in your life, if you're grieving, if you're emotionally down, if you've gone through some really tough stuff, he will pick out folk who are vulnerable. And that's why it's really important at this time that we surround ourselves with our friends and we keep connected with people. We keep connected with folk in church. We don't let our good relationships slip. It might also be a good time to think about perhaps folk who don't speak life into us and who bring us down, and just to consider our lives at this time, and just becoming sharper and more aware of what's going on around us. So he isolates people, and when he does that, he then begins to fill our minds with negativity, and he of course then finds this is a great way just to wear people out. With regards to our homes and our marriages, he likes to break up marriage and relationships. So for some folk, they may find that they just start to think negatively towards their spouse out of nowhere, and that sort of festers and can cause turmoil within a marriage. And this can be repaired, and if you're going through that, this can be repaired. And it's just for us to be alert that he will come against our marriages like that and try and speak negativity into them. He'll also come against our home and our children. And so at this time, it's good to just reflect on what goes on in your home. You know, do everything you can to keep peace in your home. The enemy will do everything he can to have us arguing and falling out and having distension in our home. But Jesus is the Prince of Peace, and he comes and he wants us to have peace in our home. And it's possible to have that at this time. So just be alert. If you feel distension and tension in your home, then just don't allow it and come against that. If you have children, you really pray over them and protect them. Your teenagers, you know, our teenagers quite often, our children, our teenagers may want to go off to their rooms a lot. And I would say to you, do everything you can to bring them into the heart of the family as much as you can. One thing the enemy doesn't want is families sitting together at the table to eat. I would encourage you to do that. Bring the family around the table. It's good for the parents. The parent to sit with the children and just have that feeling of authority, and where the family can come together and enjoy each other's company and be united. It's really, really important. So even if it's once a day, I think it's so important and biblical that we sit round the table together as a family, and that can just keep the harmony in the home. It's really important to eat together. Also, if you just feel tension in the home, get your worship music on. And even where you might want to lash out, if you're feeling a bit annoyed or whatever, then just speak love. You know, God is love, and that's who he is. So that's what we want to feel in our homes, the presence of God and God's love in our homes. So be alert. If you feel the enemy coming around and causing tension, If you get up in the morning and you feel that, then you can stop that in your home. You can just decide to stand against it, and you can speak love and life into your home. We also need to be aware of the enemy, even in our church lives and things. No, the enemy is out to cause tension and division, and he will do that even in our churches and our workplaces. Wherever he can get in, he will try and cause harm. So be alert to that. It says in 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 8, be alert and sober. That word sober means well balanced and of self-discipline. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. So just be alert to that. Sometimes, unwittingly, we can wander into his territory, and that's a dangerous thing to do. And you may be able to reflect back on your life and not even realise you may have done that, and that just gives him a door into our life. So perhaps you've been into doing horoscopes, maybe Ouija boards as a child or even as an adult. Maybe you've been to a medium or a fortune teller. Maybe you've dabbled in witchcraft. Maybe you've watched a lot of horror movies, things like that. All these things and many other things. I can't cover everything today, but many other things can open us up to the enemy's influence, and he can put fear in our hearts and just start to get around us. And the great thing about that is, through what we're talking about today and tomorrow when we look at how to find freedom, you don't need to stress if you've dabbled in these things, because Jesus can break any influence they may have had in your life off you and bring you freedom. Another area that the enemy can gain access is through fear and anxiety and worry. And many of us, particularly at the moment with the coronavirus, many of us are worried and fearful. And it's natural to be worried and fearful about these things, but fear can take over our lives, and they can control our actions and what we do. We can become extremely fearful for our children, and then we become overprotective. And fear can really just get around our lives. We can become fearful. Even now, we can become fearful about our finances and what the future holds. But when it comes to an extreme and it's affecting our health and our decisions, then often there can be a spirit of fear that needs broken off our lives. I struggled for many years with fear, and it shut me down, and I didn't really enjoy life the way I wanted to, because I would be held back. I was self-conscious. I felt anxious about things, and I knew I wasn't embracing life the way I wanted to. And God spoke to me about that. And in 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7, there's a well-known verse there where it says that we haven't been given a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And I took hold of that verse and I spoke it over my life. And I began to feel the anxiety and fear that I'd been feeling start to diminish. And some of the fears I had to face, and I did face them. And as I faced them, I found myself getting stronger and getting courage. And eventually that fear let go of me, and I was able to relax more in my life and enjoy it. And some of us just aren't enjoying our lives because we're being held back by things. Often, for some of us, maybe there's people in our lives, and they've maybe spoken things into our life that hasn't been good for us. And these thoughts have been implanted in our minds, and we find it hard to get past them. And you know, it's possible to renew your mind and renew your thinking. And tomorrow I'm going to talk about that a bit more, and how we don't have to think the way we do. We can renew our minds, and we can move forward feeling different and feeling empowered and feeling that we've overcome our enemies. It is so possible to break free from these things. Something that can stop us breaking free can be unforgiveness in our lives. And some of us have gone through really difficult things in our lives, and people have harmed us and hurt us. And people who should have made us feel safe didn't make us feel safe. People spoke things into our life that have harmed us, and even as adults, we're still feeling the effects of that. And I just want to tell you that it is possible to overcome these issues in our lives, and it's possible to renew the way we think. But one of the things we really need to do, and there is a lot of power, is in the power of forgiveness. And I would ask you just now to, perhaps if you struggle in this area, maybe to think about who is it in your life that you need to forgive. You know, when we forgive, it doesn't mean that we have to reconnect with people who are not good for us. It doesn't mean that what they did was right. It doesn't change that. They may have done harmful things. But what forgiveness does, when we forgive, it releases us of the tension and the bitterness even that we might feel towards the past. It lets us go where we've been changed to maybe an incident or a conversation or something that happened. Unforgiveness can bind us to that. But when we break it and we choose to forgive, it frees us up. It doesn't change the situation, it doesn't make it right, but it frees us up and it frees our minds up. And you will find that as you forgive, a lightness will come upon you that you didn't have before. I know this personally. Many years ago, I was in unforgiveness towards somebody who had let me down badly, and I was in church, and the minister had asked us forward for prayer, and this lady was going to pray for me, and as she went to pray for me, she said, "I can't pray for you because you're in unforgiveness, and so God can't work in your life because your unforgiveness is going to stop him." And instantly I knew who she was talking about. So instantly I thought, it was a battle for a minute, but I decided to forgive that person. And she then prayed for me, and God was able to work in my life. And a few days later I encountered that person, and whereas in the past I would have got tense and stressed, I didn't feel anything. That was gone. It didn't mean that what he had done didn't make it right, but I was free of the sadness and the bitterness that I felt towards that person. So I just want you to think about these things. Perhaps for you, there's just an area in your life where you're just a bit stuck, where the enemy has just gained access into your life, wherein you're thinking, maybe you think a bit negatively, maybe you struggle with anger, rage, or just your emotions, your anxiety. There's just areas in your life where you're not at peace and you're not feeling like you're embracing and enjoying life the way you would like to. And I know what that feels like. You just feel a bit held back and you just struggle with these thoughts. And so I just want to encourage you just now that in tomorrow's session, we're going to look at how you can find freedom from that. And it is possible to find freedom from the pressure that the enemy puts on us in the way he causes us to think and feel. And so I just want to encourage you, today as I'm finishing just now, maybe reflect over what I've said. Is there anything in there that's maybe holding you back? Is there any unforgiveness in your life that might be holding you back? Think about it perhaps over tonight, and I would encourage you to pray and ask Jesus to help you in this. If you want to break free from stuff, this time in lockdown is a great time to just reflect on your life and move forward and make some good decisions. And we can move forward from stuff that's been holding us back in our lives, and we can also renew our mind. So think about these things. Think about who perhaps you would like to forgive, and maybe just look into your heart and ask, is it possible that you could forgive so that you can move forward? And then, listen to worship music even again tonight. I always say it, but I know when I worship that it causes the presence of God to come around me, and then he can work in my life. So just get some good worship music on. Open your Bible if you have it, but above all, ask Jesus to help you in this. He wants to help bring freedom to your life. He wants to help you break free. He wants to help you move forward and leave your fears and your guilt and your shame and your anxieties behind, and the stuff that the enemy has lied to you about. So I would just ask you and encourage you just to reflect on these things. And tomorrow we're just going to come together again, and we're going to look at how you break free. Just some simple steps that can help you break free and find freedom and move forward from your situation and gain that power and authority that you need over your enemy. We don't need to be victims, but we can rise up and we can take authority in our situations, and we can find freedom. Thank you so much for joining in again today.